we need to wait for Nicole, right?
We can still start because we still need to do public comment. But we couldn't do much more until she gets here because of the COS and then the subdivisions.
And she has the COS.
Yeah.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will open a meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment?
I don't know if
Yes,
you're
sir.
gonna do it today. Brandon told me there was an issue with one of my claims in regards to my photographer. And so it was discussed on Monday, but no one reached out to me, so I figured I'd come over and see what the issue was.
There was written on here, a request to follow the claims policy, so I don't know what that,
So we have a claims policy and we've been following it for quite some time. Basically, with a claim that's pretty boilerplate, it's on the bottom there, we sign it, signed by two, goes through the claims process, it's put on the claims approval form, and then we vote to, as it says, pay the approved claim. So in order for a claim to be on that list, it has to be already approved. So that's why that is coming to the meeting like we do with all claims. So claims are either signed in the accounting office. If there's an issue we need to discuss, they come here to a meeting and we discuss it. Depending on who it's for, what it's for, if it involves HIPAA, personal privacy rights, then it's done in a closed door. Either way, it makes it to the report and any privacy information is redacted. So with this one, there's two things. One is we set up, it was my idea to set up the 43.8 account. And the idea was that it could be the money in that account is $50,000. It's from PILT, and there's two caveats. It's for the sheriff to spend in a way that he sees fit that honors Mason Moore. Two caveats. One, PILT has to be fully funded. If it's not, then we need to look at, where PILT needs to go. And two, the way that money is to be spent is not on anything that would be of self-promotion. What the motion specified was vehicles, overtime, tasers, weapons, bullets, that kind of thing. So we've had to address in the past year, maybe year and a half, a number of claims that have been for pencils that say support your local sheriff, or something like that. Challenge coins, and in this case, a professional photographer from Fort Benton. We had photos taken and we did it with a phone and it cost us nothing. If you want to do photos in your department, I would say let's go ahead and let department heads do that, but we should not be bringing in somebody from Fort Benton. We do have photographers here. We should not be spending $500, especially when 3 weeks ago I received another call from a citizen who was called 911. She was on the highway. The call was not answered, and one of the things she asked me about is the complaint from the Board of Health meeting where calls were not being answered because there's not enough money in the budget for gas. We made the budget whole. There was a surplus beyond what the sheriff's office budget was this year, and there was still upset that there wasn't enough for deputies. I think it is a waste to be spending $500 for pictures from a photographer in Fort Benton. So, just following the claims policy, those are my issues, and if you want, we can put it on the agenda or talk about it, whatever you guys want to do. But if we do this, if we allow this for this department, every department gets an open door to spend $500 on pictures from a photographer brought in from out of town. So.
May I address it? We've been doing pictures in that office since Rich Thompson was sheriff. And it used to be Audrey out of Helena that came down and charged a ton of money for it. And commissioners paid for the frame that was done back in 2014 that we currently use today, which cost $660 to get done at Ben Franklin. So you're right, the Mason Moore count in that motion that was made, I still have it, said that the Mason Moore count was to be used at the discretion of the sheriff as he or she felt fit. And I did refer to, or reached out to Commissioner Folkford before I even made an agreement with Eric from Bird Images to do this, because I think it's right for the people of this community in this county to be able to walk into my office and see who works for them. And this isn't something that's new. We've done it year after year. Well, we haven't done it since 2016. And so everybody on my board is no longer, for the most part, employed in my agency. So I needed to update it. And I did reach out and ask for a blessing before I even got into the agreement with it, because I didn't want to have this hassle. And I got the email right here where he said absolutely.
Well, and I guess, I mean, you're right, when he did ask me, and my opinion is, I agree with you. I think that it's important for the people in this community to know who serves them, especially in our law enforcement. And that was the reason I feel that is correct, and I signed that. I approved it. So where it goes from here, that's up to the other two commissioners.
Well,
And that's where I stand. I want everybody to know that.
This isn't a new practice. This is something that's done in every sheriff's office in the state of Montana. Has a professional photographer come in and take pictures of their staff. And those are the same pictures that are utilized when Mason was killed. That's the same one that's on the wall or in the memorial back in DC. That's a picture. Yeah, if you want to take a mugshot photo off a phone, feel free. But these are professional people that serve the citizens of this state, in this county, and this community. And a picture that represents them respectively in their attire, I don't think is too much to ask for. And I think the people of this county are going to agree that they want to be able to know who works for them. And this is, like I said, this is nothing new. We've been doing it since Rich Thompson was sheriff. And every time I turn around, no matter what I ask for, I have to come down here and do this. Because somebody says, well, it's not what we want to do. Well, this is past practice. It's been done. Go back to when Brendan was here. Go back when Rich was here. These things have been done over and over. And now, just because I'm sheriff and people, we don't necessarily agree with things, now we want to make it an issue. And that's the frustrating part. So, you know, I don't understand what the issues are. You're right, my budget's whole, and whoever said that they didn't get a response on a traffic complaint, let me be honest with you. The highway is actually the highway patrol's jurisdiction, not mine. And so there's no constitutional or statutory requirement to go out and chase people up and down the highway on traffic complaints. You should probably call Colonel Butler and tell him to get some troopers down here. That's not my forte anyways, but we try to do the best we can with what we have. It's kind of like everything else that goes on. And I haven't come down here and complained about my deputies. I haven't filled a position. I haven't said a word about it. I've had issues with my dispatch center. I've got that fixed. I think we've got the issues in the detention center fixed, besides the fact that we have no inmates. But everything else you haven't heard from me on. So that's where I stand.
This is not a question of not honoring the people that work for you, not calling them professional. Like I said, we've done pictures that are of very good quality without spending $500 for them. If your budget was one that has not been so contentious, if there were extra money in your budget, then it wouldn't be an issue. but it has been a subject of extreme contention the last couple of years. There are complaints from the public, and I think we have to be responsible to them. And,
Well, I haven't been getting the complaints.
Well,
So
I
if there's
don't
a
know
complaint
about that,
the
Win,
office of the
but
sheriff,
the
it should be
other-
directed to the office of the
excuse
sheriff.
me, thank you. The other point is, you didn't get clearance from the commission. You got clearance from one commissioner who did not have authority to speak on behalf of the full commission. I am simply following our claims process, and I have that responsibility
Well,
as a
let me
commissioner.
go back to procurement policy. I don't even need to come down here and ask you for permission for anything under $5,000. So if you want to talk policy, let's talk all of it. It's $500. I don't need to ask your permission. And that's set in your own policy that you put out. You said anything under $5,000, I didn't need to come talk to you about. I could tell you about it if it was under 5,000, over 1,500, but this is 500. So technically, I don't need to ask your permission in the first place. I did it out of courtesy. That's your
When-
policy. So
This
which one do
is-
you want to stand by?
When
Laura?
I would like civility,
Well,
Immediately.
so would
Thank
I.
you.
I would like the fact that every time I put in a claim, just because you don't agree with it, I have to come down here and justify it. Even though your policy says that I don't necessarily need to. Because under the statute and the way the law is once you finalize my budget, you no longer have authority on how it's spent.
that is
You know
not the
that as
case,
well
and
as
you
I
know
do.
it. I am going to speak to this. This is not the procurement policy. That is for capital. That is not for every willy-nilly thing you want to
That's
buy.
not
This
willy-nilly.
is self-promotion.
This has been
and
done
it's-
time again. You've been commissioner
Okay.
for the last 10, 11 years.
Yep.
You have signed how many claims from Brenda Ludwig for pictures?
This is not personal, Win.
The hell
There
it's
are,
not, Laura.
okay, you can have your own opinion. You may not have your own facts.
You denied my challenge coins. You argued with me on the
That was
medals.
self-promotion.
That's not self-promotion. We've been doing that when Brenda was sheriff. That's the same thing. You argued with me about the medals to give my staff for saving people's lives.
No, that we had passed those because of
I
what
had to
they
come
were.
down here and argue with you about it.
We
because
have a responsibility to ask questions and to know what it is that county money, the citizens' money, is being spent on. You do not have to agree with that. That is our charge by law. It is in MCA,
You know what?
and I'm going to continue to do my
Yeah,
job, Win.
I
period.
notice you hold everybody else to the same standard.
That's exactly what I'm trying to do
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Because, we won't get into the other things that are way out of whack, right? You want to talk about that, or just keep beating on the guy that brings in the most revenue of this county, and you guys want to jam me up on having pictures taken? But every sheriff in the state of Montana has pictures taken. Hell, Sheriff Gookin and Sheriff Slaughter up in Great Falls just paid to have videos done for recruitment of their agency by the same guy. Had videos done. I'm pretty sure that their commissioners didn't give them a bad time about it, right? Because I'm sure that was cheap to have a video made to recruit employees, right? You guys are trying to hold me to a different standard when everybody else is just says yes. And the past practices that you've done in the past is the same thing. The only difference is who the sheriff is. And the fact is I'm a contentious person, and I rub you guys the wrong way. That's what it comes down to. You know it, and I know it. And I've been trying to come and play nice with you guys. I come to Daryl's elected officials and department head meetings, and I'm pleasant, I'm civil in those, unless I miss something. I had all my staff come in for your driver's training, even though that cost me a ton of money for a training for people who don't drive county cars. But mandatory for all employees. Right? Do what you want to do.
I guess the only thing that I would agree with Daryl that I think this is something that you definitely need to have the dove. And I think that people deserve to have that right to know who their deputies are when they come into the office. The only issue that I really have is did you talk to any local did you talk to Kelly Morris by any chance?
I don't even know who Kelly Morris is.
Well, he's probably about the best photographer in the county, and he's an excellent photographer. I mean, the issue that I have is that no one local was contacted for it. I mean,
And the reason why is because Eric was at our MSPOA convention taking our photos there. And I'll be
Okay.
honest with you, you go out and get your senior photos done, what are you spending, $250, $300 for a session? Right, for one person. I've got 28 people that gotta be photographed. So if we're spending $250 on one session for a senior, I didn't think that having 28 people photographed was gonna be, what, $500 was reasonable.
I
Just to
don't doubt, I
clear,
don't doubt that you didn't get a good deal on it, but I just think that if you would, and I guess if you didn't know Kelly Morris existed, then I guess that's,
I mean,
I'm probably pretty sure he would have given you pretty much the same deal.
But we had a gal do some photos for us, and they didn't turn out well. And so, you know, it was $200, and I was like, you know what, it's not $200 worth of good photographs. So, yeah, there's that one gal here that I knew about. And my other person that did them last time, it was my ex-daughter-in-law, and she moved back to Georgia after her divorce, so it didn't do much good, so. But
I want to clear up one thing that you said, and it's not true. One of the things I said in bringing this up is, absolutely, I support the pictures. The citizens absolutely have a right to know who is working for them, either in the sheriff's department or the rest of the county. There is absolutely no reason, though, why, one, we couldn't have gone local. Ask the question. Google it. We have several photographers that are professional. And then two, if you've got a really, really, really tight budget, $500 can be spent on overtime, weapons, tasers, vests, and you can get good quality pictures without that kind of cost. So if you would like to follow the process that we already have, and we can go through this and change it, but this is the process we have now, then, let's see. If there is disagreement between the commissioners regarding a claim, it will be placed on the agenda. The commission will vote. The majority decision shall be final.
So do we need to place this on the agenda for next week?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll get this on the agenda then. Thank you.
he's supposed to be here on Friday.
Excuse me?
He's here Friday,
Okay.
and he was expecting payment when he got it.
Okay, let's see, did you have a COS, Bernadette?
Hello there, I do. I assume, are you Mr. Kirk?
I am.
I'm Nicole, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
The Stephen Kirk family transfer, and Bernadette so nicely here, thank you so much. So, per our process, you all received this, 12-ish days ago. This is the Kirk family transfer. Mr. Kirk is here. He is gifting tract B2 to his daughter. This is on Old Town Road, southern end of Broadwater County. I have the family transfer documents here if you'd like to peruse them.
I did review this when you sent it to us, Nicole, and this does appear to fit the intent of the family transfer. This is just a personal question. Is your daughter moving back? Or
No,
moving here?
no, she's actually just finishing up with her second bout with cancer, and they had to sell their house to pay all their doctor bills, so.
Oh, I'm
trying to help
sorry.
them out by giving them some land to build a little house on that they can, got someplace to live.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry to hear that.
She's tough, she's staying with it, so appreciate it.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, you got my vote on this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion?
No, if you're asking for that, I will move to support this family transfer as it does appear to fit the priorities or the requirements of family transfer in MCA.
And I'll second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the Kirk family land transfers. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Do we have a signature on this thing?
I'm not sure if there's a signature on that or not. I'm sorry, this is still, I'm learning my way through this.
We don't normally have one, do we, or do we?
You could sign, there's a blank line on the back page. You could sign it and then print underneath.
And I can amend that to say commissioner's signature on that too.
Probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the intent of those lines, and I'm sorry that was just assumed and not explicitly spelled out, so I will make that change moving forward. Thank you so very much.
Good luck to your daughter.
Thank you.
And are you going to record these today too? Not do their- Correct. Okay, so you're good. You're all done. And I know it's not time yet, but I will start passing out documents.
Looks like Lake Vista 5 is first.
You should have all received your yellow books. Or no, this one is a gray book, I'm sorry. Yellow is the next one. This is the findings of fact and order report. Sorry.
Thank you for the
Is that you?
books.
Yeah,
I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
getting those early
Yeah,
like that.
makes the process much better.
For the record, I will be abstaining for the vote on this subdivision.
I have an extra if you care for it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I will begin reading whenever you tell me you are ready.
I am ready.
Alright, so this is the findings of fact and order for Lake Vista, Lot 5, major subdivision. Preliminary plat is dated August 1st, 2019. The applicant is EDJ LLC out of Bozeman, and the applicant's representative is Bernadette Swenson of Townsend, Montana. This subdivision is located off of Alaska Trail, approximately 4 miles northwest of the city of Townsend. I should mention, since this is a major subdivision, a public hearing was held by the planning board on September 18th, 2019. We did not have any written or public comment. This property was previously subdivided and is known as Lake Vista Minor Subdivision. The developer intends to create 7 lots from an existing 20.08 acre parcel. Lots range in size from 2.35 to 3.61 acres. Parkland is shown on the preliminary plat in the location of an existing natural drainage. These lots are being submitted for review as residential lots. The required preliminary review fee of $3,075 has been paid. All of the lots proposed are subject to DEQ review. Draft proposed covenants are included in the preliminary plat application. Review is performed pursuant to the Montana Subdivision and Plating Act, Section 76.3101 through 76.3614 Montana Codes Annotated, and the Broadwater County Subdivision Regulations. The proposed preliminary plat, Lake Vista Lot 5 Major Subdivision, as submitted by the applicant, together with the required supplementary plans and information, appear to satisfy the requirements of these regulations and comply with the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan dated July 2007. A vicinity map as well as a preliminary plat is provided in the preliminary plat application. No rock outcroppings or the presence of bedrock have been identified on the property. The nearest open water body is the Canyon Ferry Lake Reservoir, which is approximately 0.4 miles to the east. The proposed development is not in an area subject to flood hazard. Each lot will be served by an individual well. Excuse me. DEQ will review all of the lots for septic and well locations. Well log data for 7 wells in the vicinity are located on the preliminary plat application as item number 14. Average depth of the wells is 112 feet deep and static water level averages 57 feet. Yield average is 37 gallons per minute. Individual wastewater treatment systems are proposed for all 7 lots. These lots will be reviewed by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality for the adequacy and impact of the wastewater treatments or wastewater systems on groundwater quality. DEQ will issue a determination of non-significant impacts and a certificate of subdivision approval, which must be presented to the county for recordation of the final plat. Lot owners will be responsible for disposal of their own solid waste. Subdivision residents will have the option of hiring an independent contractor to pick up their solid waste or transport it themselves to the Broadwater County Transfer Station, Winston Canister Site, or the Townsend Canister Site. There is an existing drainage that traverses the property in a northeasterly to southwesterly direction. The drainage is designated as an 80-foot wide drainage easement and is being dedicated as parkland by this subdivision plat. All roadway drainage structures will be designed in accordance with regulations as required by Broadwater County and DEQ. The current use of this parcel is vacant subdivision land. According to the preliminary plat application, this property would not be considered prime farmland even if it were irrigated. This subdivision should not have an effect on agricultural productivity since it is not currently utilized for any agricultural purposes and is part of an existing approved subdivision. The responsibility to maintain boundary fences will be the individual landowners. The developer will be required to control any noxious weeds until the property is turned over to the subsequent landowners. An environmental assessment is not required since this proposed development lies within an area covered by the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan. No falls, slides, or slumps or adverse soil, rock, mud, or snow have been identified on the property. No rock outcroppings have been identified either. The property is located within the intermountain seismic belt that extends through western Montana and frequently produces small earthquakes and has previously developed some major earthquakes. Property damage and risk can be minimized with construction techniques and earthquake planning. There are no marsh, shrub, or forest lands located on the property. There are no trees or vegetation cover. Existing vegetation consists of light native grasses and some prickly pear cactus. No critical plant species have been identified. Existing vegetation will only be disturbed for necessary construction of roads, driveways, utilities, and structures. Any construction disturbance will be reseeded with an approved grass seed mix. A weed management plan is in the process of being developed with assistance by the Broadwater County Weed Coordinator to control and prevent the growth of noxious weeds. The developer will be responsible for adhering to the weed management plan until all lots are sold or the responsibility is turned over to a homeowners association. Wildlife such as antelope, deer, upland game birds, other small birds, snakes, rabbits, fox, and coyote occasionally utilize the proposed subdivision. However, the use is infrequent due to the lack of cover in prime feeding areas, as well as the close proximity to nearby residential development and a busy highway. Therefore, the impacts to wildlife should be minimal. A letter was sent to the Montana Historical Society on June 14, 2007, for the previous subdivision, Lake Vista Subsequent Minor, to determine if there are any known historical, cultural, or archaeological sites which may be affected by the proposed development. A response letter is enclosed in the preliminary plat application as item number 33, which states there have been no previously recorded sites within the designated search locale. Access to all lots will be off of the existing internal subdivision road, Alaska Trail, via US Highway 287. Alaska Trail is an approved subdivision road, and the access onto US Highway 287 has been previously approved as well. The entire road length of Alaska Trail, as proposed for this development, will be 3,090 feet. However, the Broadwater County subdivision regulations state the maximum length for a dead-end road is 1,500 feet. The developer proposes to leave the existing cul-de-sac in place at its current location of 1,364 feet in length and install a second cul-de-sac at the end of the additional 1,728 feet. A variance request for the deviation from the Broadwater County subdivision regulations for maximum length of dead-end roads is included in the preliminary plat application and must be approved by the Broadwater County Commissioners prior to receiving preliminary plat approval from the Commissioners. Utility service will be provided by Northwestern Energy. Natural gas service is not currently available. Electricity is currently available to Lake Vista Lot 4-5. Each lot will have a 15-foot wide utility easement located on the perimeter boundaries. A transmission line with an unidentified easement width bisects the subdivision on the lot lines between Lot 5-3 and Lot 5-2. The proposed subdivision is in the Broadwater County Rural Fire District jurisdiction. The distance from the nearest fire station, the City of Townsend Fire Hall, to the subdivision is approximately 4 miles. According to a letter addressed to the Broadwater County Rural Fire Department dated July 25, 2019, the developer is requesting to pay the per lot cash in lieu of water supply fee of $1,000 per lot, payable at the time of sale and closing on each lot. The Broadwater County Rural Fire District Chief agreed to this and approved the fire plan on August 15, 2019. The Broadwater County Sheriff's Department will provide law enforcement services. The Sheriff's Department is located approximately 4 miles from the proposed subdivision. An email from the sheriff states he does not have any major concerns regarding law enforcement, but he believes the fire chief might have some concerns regarding fire suppression and available water in the area. The Broadwater Health Center, also located in Townsend, will provide both the ambulance and emergency medical services to the subdivision residents. The proposed subdivision is served by the Townsend schools. This subdivision could potentially produce 10 to 11 students according to figures obtained from the Broadwater County Growth Policy Plan. The potential for new students from this development could have an impact on existing bus routes, which may need to be altered once the subdivision is at full build-out. Lands to the north, east, and west of this property are part of a subdivision. Lands to the south are residential. Since the property is bordered on the east by the heavily traveled US Highway 287 and to the west lies the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, these could potentially pose a serious risk to the safety of the subdivision residents, especially to children and domestic animals. These risks can be mitigated by proper setbacks, fencing, and homeowner awareness. Since this is a major subdivision, the parkland dedication requirement is required for this proposed development. The developer proposes to dedicate 1.43 acres of parkland within an 80-foot drainage easement. Although this parkland could not necessarily be developed, it could be utilized as a walking path to connect this development to adjacent lands to the south. It is hereby ordered that the preliminary plat for the Lake Vista Lot 5 major subdivision is approved, subject to the conditions listed below. Final plat approval shall be contingent upon completion and compliance with these conditions. Plans for sewage treatment and water supply shall be submitted to the Montana Department, number 1. Plans for the sewage treatment and water supply shall be submitted to the Montana Department of Environmental Quality for review and approval. The certificate of subdivision approval shall be filed with the final plat. Number 2, a stormwater drainage plan shall be submitted to DEQ for review and recommendation. Number 3, the applicant will be required to submit the preliminary and final plat drawings in electronic format to Broadwater County in ArcGIS, AutoCAD, or MicroStation format. Additional materials may be requested by the county in electronic format to facilitate review of application materials. Number 4, plans for the location and installation of individual mailboxes shall be reviewed and approved by the United States Postal Service prior to installation. Number 5, the extension of Alaska Trail must be designed in accordance with the Broadwater County subdivision road standards and stamped by a professional engineer. A letter from the PE shall be provided to the county stating that the road and any improvements have been constructed in accordance with the approved plans and specifications, and that he or she has completed an inspection of the road and any improvements. Number 6, prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall adequately fund or improve a proportionate share of Alaska Trail from its intersection with US Highway 287 to the first cul-de-sac. The road improvements would have to be constructed to a minimum of the Broadwater County subdivision road standards and must be certified as meeting county subdivision road standards by a registered engineer. Number 7, the applicant and the Fire Protection Authority having jurisdiction shall use their best efforts to draft a fire protection plan specifically for this subdivision in accordance with Broadwater County subdivision regulations. The plan shall be equally acceptable to the FPHJ, the applicant, and the county governing authority. The plan shall adequately address the fire risk analysis, all findings of fact, and appropriate mitigation measures. In the event the parties are unable to come to agreement by the final plat submittal, the applicant shall become eligible to provide the per lot cash in lieu fee for water supply as may be defined in the Broadwater County subdivision regulations in effect at the time of submittal. Number 8, prior to any development and or soil disturbance, a weed management plan for the proposed development shall be submitted to the county weed district for review and approval. Number 9, the book and page reference to the restrictive covenant filed with the county clerk and recorder shall be indicated on the face of the final plat. In addition, restrictive covenants, revocable or alterable only with the consent of the Board of County Commissioners, shall be placed upon the property and shall provide for the following. A, per the subdivision application, all lots shall be used for residential purposes only. B, notification of the potential health risk from radon concentrations and that such risk can be evaluated through soil tests and mitigated through radon abatement techniques incorporated into structures. C, a notification that all dwelling units within the subdivision should be constructed to specifications which meet or exceed equivalent provisions in the applicable state building code for this seismic zone, which is Zone 3. D, notification of the potential degradation of existing emergency services due to the potential for growth in a rural area. E, any additional replacement or relocated utility lines shall be installed underground in accordance with county subdivision regulations unless otherwise determined by the utility provided. F, a no access restriction along US Highway 287 with the exception of the approach onto Highway 287 for the internal access roads. G, any exterior lighting shall be directed downward to minimize visibility beyond the property lines. H, notification of the presence of agricultural operations in the vicinity. I, a waiver of the right to protest to join a special district for the purpose of providing community water and or wastewater treatment system improvements and or maintenance. J, a restrictive covenant binding the landowner, any heirs, successors, and assigns, and all future owners of the property within the subdivision agreeing therein to hold Broadwater County harmless and indemnify Broadwater County from all claims, demands, obligations, suits, causes of action, damages, and liability, including the county's costs and attorney's fees arising in any manner whatsoever out of or relating to the existence, use, operation, repair, and or maintenance of the following. Sub-item 1, earthquake fault zone and any seismic activity, and number 2, water availability. K, each lot shall be maintained in a clean, attractive, and weed-free manner. Noxious weeds must be pulled, sprayed, or cut prior to seed maturity. L, a prohibition of the storage of foods, garbage, or continuous feeding of domestic pets outdoors or other activities that creates an attractive nuisance for wildlife species. Hay or alfalfa storage and feeding are not prohibited where livestock are permitted. M, lots shall only allow for livestock if a small acreage livestock management plan is reviewed and approved by the county extension agent and submitted to the county. Each lot owner shall be required to create and adhere to their own livestock management plan. N, all cats and dogs must be restrained, penned, or otherwise under the control of their owner at all times. Number 10, prior to filing the final plat, the following improvements shall be installed or otherwise guaranteed. A, roads. B, any necessary improvements required by the stormwater drainage plan, weed management plan, fire protection plan, or approach permits. And C, utilities abutting and available to each lot, electrical and telephone shall be underground. If said improvements are not installed prior to final plat, then the applicant shall enter into a written subdivision improvements agreement with Broadwater County, guaranteeing the construction and installation of such improvements, and shall provide an acceptable financial security guarantee in accordance with county subdivision regulations appendix E. Number 11, prior to filing the final plat, the applicant shall A, provide proof that all taxes and special assessments assessed and levied on the property are paid for the current tax year, including any past delinquencies, and B, provide documentation, an abstract of title or platting certificate showing that the applicant is the lawful owner of the property with the apparent authority to subdivide the same, showing the names of lien holders or claimants of record and the written consent to the subdivision by the owners of the land if other than the applicant, and any lien holders or claimants of record against the land. The applicant is financially responsible for actual outside engineering, consulting, professional and/or contracted service fees, etc., at the sole discretion of the county for additional review and/or final plat approval of the proposed subdivision. Preliminary plat approval of the Lake Vista Lot 5 major subdivision shall be enforced for 3 calendar years. At the end of this period, the governing body may, at the request of the subdivider, extend its approval for a mutually agreed upon period of time. Any mutually agreed upon extension must be in writing and dated and signed by the members of the governing body and the subdivider or subdivider's agent. The governing body may issue more than one extension. A party as defined by 76-3-625 MCA who is aggrieved by a decision of the governing body may, within 30 days after this decision, appeal to the Broadwater County District Court. I do want to point out Commission Required Covenant A. This is new. This is the first time you're seeing this. This came from Terry Depew. That this should be a Commission Required Covenant that we should be including on all subdivisions from here on out. If an applicant applies for, or I'm sorry, on their application, if they state it's for residential or commercial, the best way to enforce that is through Commission Required Covenant.
So if it were also, say, 50-50 residential and commercial, then this would say will be used for 50% residential, 50% commercial.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
So that covenant, that Commission Required Covenant will always mimic what is written in their application. So it can be fluid. It may change depending on the application.
I like that. I think that's a good
I do too.
suggestion.
And that came from some discussion that we actually had at the planning board level on this next subdivision coming up, but so I don't want to get off track, but there are options sometimes. You know, we don't have building codes, we don't have building inspectors, we don't have zoning. So how does a landowner know when they go to purchase it? You know, having a realtor sit on our planning board was very beneficial, has always been beneficial, because we can see it from the landowner or the purchaser's perspective. How does a realtor or a potential landowner know what that property can be used for without digging back through the subdivision file? So this is a very handy tool for potential future landowners and realtors as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it was a great discussion that we had, and so then I put the question to Tara, and she said, yes, this is how you should address this. So. And one last thing too, I know you probably still want to have discussion on it, but I just want to be sure that you vote on the variance request before the preliminary plat.
And I did notice that the fire district did send a letter that the variance request would satisfy their needs. And that is signed by Ed.
You referenced item 10, and it doesn't correspond with 10 in here, so is it
It doesn't, I'm sorry.
Where would that be?
Or the variance request,
Yeah.
I should probably make that change in the report then too. I'm sorry.
34.
Okay.
It should also be in the front leaf, isn't it? I guess that's just the plan. The fire plan, so it also has the information.
I don't see in the findings of fact report where it says number 10. Can you tell me where you saw that? Just so I want to make the change to make it correct.
Well, it was on his report. Says we will support the
on
variance
Ed,
as
okay.
stated in number 10,
Oh,
That was,
and accept the proposal as stated in number 9. So what's he
that's
talking?
items 9 and 10
Yeah.
of the fire plan.
so
okay.
not of
Oh,
this.
oh,
Of this, okay,
okay.
good.
I guess that's where I got confused, okay. Okay, thanks, you,
No, I make mistakes, and I
okay.
appreciate being able to correct those when I can,
Yeah,
if I could.
that makes sense, thank you. Okay,
So with the approval of Ed Schindel, I move that we grant the variance as requested and required for subdivision preliminary plat.
Is there a
yeah,
second?
a second.
Motion been made, second to grant the variance for the fire plan and for the preliminary plat. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Question?
Motion carries.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, is the variance exclusive to the fire plan, or does it go further than that? Have not seen or heard about
It's only for the fire plan for the size of the cul-de-sac, is it not?
Do you want me to address that?
Yes.
Okay, so the variance request, our subdivision regulations allow for a maximum dead-end road, so any road that ends at either a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac of 1,500 feet.
that? Okay.
With the extension of this road, and the reason for that is for emergency services, so that the fire trucks have room to maneuver and get out, so they're not going in and being stuck. So the variance request is not necessarily for the fire plan, it's for the length of the road to basically go against the subdivision regulations. The commissioners do have the latitude to request, or I'm sorry, to grant that variance. The fact that Fire Chief Ed Schindel said he has no issues with it just makes this variance request that more solid. Because the reason for it being in the subdivision regulations is for fire protection. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay. I didn't wear the right shoes for standing for an hour, I'm sorry.
When we're done with these, I have 2 questions for you, just so you don't scoot out of the room too fast.
Okay.
Thanks.
Or run really fast.
Right.
Thank you for the warning.
The warning is always good.
Can I add something else to this while you're perusing? This parkland, in our subdivisions, I am a huge fan of interconnectivity between developments. I always think of children going to visit their neighbors, anybody going to visit their neighbors for that matter, but that's what I generally think of. So I think that this parkland is beautiful in the sense that, yes, it can't be used for developed parkland, and this was not, I did not propose this came from the developer's representative. I just think it's a brilliant idea to turn this drainage into parkland. So if this is ever developed, these children, people, anyone don't have to funnel out to the highway to visit their neighbor. So say this lot here is visiting over here, their only option would be to drive to go over here, even though it's literally out their back door, unless you're trespassing and walking through people's yard. I wish we had done this with Grandview Manor. I wish that we had some interconnectivity with Grandview Manor now with, you know, that size of development. So I think this is brilliant, because this parkland, yes, it can't be used for a developed park. You can't, you know, put playground equipment or anything in it. You can walk it, you can connect to potential development area. Not that anything is proposed here, and not that I will be, but anyway, I just wanted to add that.
So my question is, we're going through an issue on the south end of the county where there's only one way in, one way out. And that's what this is turning into, one way in, one way out. So if you end up with a grass fire or something, or you've got no way for those people to get out.
That's correct. I mean, you know, other than that road or to drive across lots.
The ingress and egress is only required though from major. Or, this is a major,
This is a major.
right. So is that a requirement of our covenants?
Subdivision regulations no longer require two.
Okay,
It's a good idea.
right. And something to consider when we update our subdivision regs. But right now it's not in regs, so it's not something we can require.
That's correct.
Okay.
So this developer, when he did the front two, did he buy tanks to put into Grandview? He bought tanks to put into the Grandview water supply system for
I
fire
believe
suppression.
so, but that's a long time
Yes,
ago.
he did.
Didn't he? Thank you.
But there's still no access from this subdivision other than to go all the way out to the road and go all the way back into Grandview. So is there any way that he can get access to Grandview in the future on the next phases, or?
Not unless there's already a dedicated easement in Grandview. You can't add that to Grandview now because of the lot owners there bought with, you know, easement
The
there.
road is
No road
inside,
through.
you know, it's a loop road, but the lots are on the outside in Grandview as opposed to the road being. Does that make sense?
It would be a great idea, and I think on a different project, we tried to do that, or we questioned and looked into it, but you can't add that to them now because all of those landowners bought without that additional traffic being added to their subdivision. Does that make sense?
So if the ground to the south is subdivided, can we require him to provide access to the south and those people to provide access from the north? If and when those subdivisions come in, can we require him to establish an easement to go to the south in case that ground to the south does get developed? Because if it doesn't, we're gonna end up with another road that's just a dead end. It's gonna be 1.5 miles to the railroad tracks, and we've got no way for people to get out of there.
You
For
can do
either
that.
this subdivision or if the one to the south gets developed.
You have done that in the past, not this commission necessarily, but the commissioners have done that in the past. Wheatland Meadows, off of Wheatland Road. Morning Sky, also off of Wheatland Road. They have, we call them, what did we call them? Half streets, not half streets. Yes, half streets is actually, I think that's the term. To where they're not constructed. They are easements shown, you know, at appropriate locations on that plat. So you can make that request on this. You can add that, and you still have another, I booked, or I scheduled this with you, so you have another week to review it too. I also want to let you know that you don't have to make a decision today. But you can require that there is an easement, a 60-foot easement there, doesn't have to be built by the developer. And the way that we worded that in those subdivisions, and I can pull the language, you know, I won't get it now, but I can send it to you. So any future development has to build the road in this subdivision. So I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but, you know, so this development, there's there could be a 60-foot easement in this subdivision. They don't have to construct it. If this is ever developed, they are required to construct and align their road to match this.
So are they required to construct the road? Can both of them just have a 60-foot easement without construct, or one of them has to construct the road?
Someone has to construct it.
So if the person to the south builds there and we require them, then does he have to build the road through this person's lot also?
Yes, they have
So
to
they
build.
would be,
Yes,
It
and that
wouldn't-
actually came from Susan Swimley when she was the Mako land use attorney.
it wouldn't be a shared expense on each subdivision, since
No.
each subdivision gains on it.
This subdivision then wouldn't have to pay for it, and you would have, you know, once they've been given final approval, you don't have well, even preliminary approval, you can't add more conditions. But this potential new development would have to align their street to match, using this point, at any point, to match with that easement, and that the condition of approval would be to also construct this road. And they would know that going into it, you know, they would know that at the time of pre-application meeting. So they could determine if they want to proceed. So it wouldn't be a surprise to them. And that's why I'm saying, you know, with Grandview, it sure would have been nice had we planned that, because seeing the way that it's starting to develop out there, and we all know the traffic out there.
Right.
To drive out, to turn, to go to your neighbors, that's scary.
Yeah.
And you're seeing more and more people driving along the fence line.
Right.
Which probably I'm not going to say whether that's legal or not, but you know, people walking along the fence line.
So the process for us to request that or impose that,
Mhm.
I guess my first question is it a request or is it we require this? Would it go then back to the landowner and their agent to come back to us and say okay or no? Does it have to be done between now and the deadline, which is next week? How would that work?
So you would put it as a condition of approval that a 60-foot access, and I'll come up with better language, I'll pull what we have already, but basically this 60-foot easement for a half street would have to be put in place somewhere to connect to lands to the south. So they could use some discretion. That would be a condition of approval. They would have that time from when they receive, or if they receive preliminary plat approval, to final approval, to put that easement on their final plat. So then you would get a chance to actually see it when it came back for final plat approval. Does that answer your question?
It does very well, thank you. I was just writing down everything you were saying.
But I would want to use the same language that we used for Wheatland Meadows and Morning Sky. I think it's important to keep regurgitating the same conditions when they're appropriate.
Again, equity, what you do for one, you do for all. Yeah, I like that idea, I don't know where you guys are at. And I think it makes sense for future planning. We don't know what the future holds, but like you said, if only we had done it before. This time we have an opportunity to not have the if only, but to actually do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Bert, if he had to take that out of there, would he, I assume he would take it out of 2 lots, or maybe if he took it out of that, he can't take it out of the very end one, because that's your parklands your drainage comes across there, right?
You could take it out of the very end lot. I mean, you know, obviously it wouldn't be appropriate to put it in here, but this being the very end lot, you could take it out at the very end, because
It
this
doesn't
is
make
also
any,
a subdivision lot right here at the very
it
end.
doesn't make any of those lots unbuildable for any reason, does it, to do that?
No, it wouldn't push them below an acre. This end lot is 2.66 acres.
Okay.
So if you wanted to make that condition that you pick where that 60-foot easement goes, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I would like to be a little flexible because of terrain purposes, whatever that, you know, or he might wanna hold it like right along the power line, since you got a power line there.
Is that what that is the power line there?
Yes.
In the middle? Okay.
Yes.
I drove out there and I remember, and I think that's what I remember seeing.
Yeah, so that might be a good future road, you know, right there along the power line. Or he may want it on the very back line, if lot one was ever developed back there.
Uh-huh.
I like the idea of flexibility. This is their subdivision. We can put in the requirement, but I think it's right that they determine where it would be.
Yeah, and terrain would be the biggest issue, I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta want
The only
to
thing-
say where it was a really bad gully or something.
It's true. The only thing I would like is for it to not go on 5-1, just because 4-5, there's already a homeowner living there, and we held the public hearing, sent them the preliminary plat. I think that could adversely affect lot 4-5.
Because they've
Why?
already purchased without that being there.
Correct. And it could negatively impact them. You know, we don't know what this is going to look like in 5 years or 20 years or what's going to happen out there. Anyway, I would just like to say that because they did not provide public comment. I had a casual conversation with them, not at work, but so they did not provide comment on the record. They didn't have an issue with it. I feel if there's a road there, they probably would have an issue with it.
Yeah.
As would most people. So, my only thought would be, I like the idea of the power line because you can't build under it anyway, to move it somewhere
But there's also
west.
restrictions on do you know what the restrictions on the power line easement is? I know they can't build direct, or you can't run a road directly underneath it, but I believe you can run it
Adjacent.
off to the
Okay.
side of that, adjacent to that easement.
Right.
Okay.
And that has to
And
be
you
a,
wouldn't want it, because it's an overhead power line, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't want it right under there anyways, or you'd be swerving around poles.
so you don't need it, does it need to be you called it a half street, so does it only need to be a 30-foot easement, or does it need to be a 60-foot easement?
60 foot, just unconstructed.
Okay.
But I not that I want to prolong this any longer, but with that being said, I would like to have some time to pull that condition from Wheatland Meadows and Morning Sky, so potentially to wait until your next meeting, Monday, which is only
Couple
a
days.
couple days away. I can have that ready for you. I know it's not on your agenda, however, but you haven't sent your agenda yet, maybe?
That
Or
is
finalized?
correct.
Okay,
It has been emailed, but,
Right.
if we have kind of a process that it doesn't get sent out officially till noon,
Till
so
noon,
we got some
right.
time.
so we have some time,
Yeah.
27 minutes worth of time.
So,
But so I'm not trying to rush you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt either. I just want that to be said, that I don't know that condition off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah, we could just ask Michelle to hold off till we get the details,
Okay.
and then add it. But I'm good with waiting till next week, at the request of our community development director, based on the discussion regarding the half street.
Yeah.
That's good with you guys?
Yep.
And I think, again, that's a good discussion. I think that it's always good to see different perspective. Obviously, we're learning from our past mistakes. We're always going to be learning. We didn't realize it was a mistake at the time with Mountain Vista Estates. Now we have to straighten that out. It just makes better developments in the future for us. So I appreciate this discussion, and I think that's a good idea, because that is not something we talked about at the planning board. But the planning board has not been involved with Mountain Vista Estates recently, like you have, so.
Right? More brains is better than one.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on
Moving
to
on quickly, right?
Four Springs minor subdivision.
So this is your yellow book.
Yeah, I rotate colors, but both of these end up yellow.